नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नमिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे and to each other वाञ्छा कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः. Once upon a time in Dwarika, a Brahmana's wife gave birth to a child. Unfortunately, however, just after being born and touching the ground, the child immediately died. The Brahmana father took the child and went directly to the palace of the king. The Brahmana was very upset because of the untimely death of the child in the presence of his young father and mother. Thus his mind became very much disturbed. Formerly, when there were responsible kings up to the time of Dwapar Yuga, when Lord Krishna was present, the king was liable to be unblamed for the untimely death of a child in the presence of his parents. Similarly, such responsibility was there during the time of Lord Ramachandra. As we have explained in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, the king was so responsible for the comforts of the citizens that he was to see that there was not even excessive heat or cold. Now the Brahmana whose child was died, thinking there was no fault on his own part, immediately went to the palace door with the dead child in his arms and accused the king as follows.
The present king, Agrasena, is envious of the Brahmanas. The exact word used in this connection is Brahma Dvisha. One who is envious of the Vedas, of a qualified Brahmana or of the Brahmana caste is called Brahma Dvish. So the king was accused of being Brahma Dvish. He was also accused of being Sadadi, falsely intelligent. The executive head of a state must be very intelligent to see to the comforts of the citizens. But according to the Brahmana, the king was not at all intelligent, although he was occupying the royal throne. Therefore, the Brahmana also called him Lubdha, which means greedy. In other words, a king or an executive head of a state should not occupy the exalted post of president or king if he is greedy and self-interested. But it is natural that an executive head becomes self-interested when he is attached to material enjoyment. Therefore, another word used here is Vishayatmana.
The Brahmana also accused the king of being Kshetra Bandhu, which refers to a person born in the family of Kshatriyas or a royal order, but lacking the qualifications of a royal personality. A king should protect Brahmanical culture and should be very alert to the welfare of his citizens. He should not be greedy due to attachment of material enjoyment. If a person with no qualifications represents himself as a Kshatriya of the royal order, he is not called a Kshatriya but a Kshatrabindu. Similarly, if a person is born of a Brahmana father but has no Brahmanical qualification, he is called Brahmana Bandhu or a Dvija Bandhu. This means that a Brahmana or a Kshatriya is not accepted simply by birth. One has to qualify himself for a particular position. Only then is he accepted as a Brahmana or a Kshatriya.
Thus the Brahmana charged that his newly born baby was dead due to the disqualifications of the king. The Brahmana took it to be most unnatural, and therefore he held the king responsible. We also find in Vedic history that if a Kshatriya king was irresponsible, sometimes a consulting board of Brahmanas maintained by the monarchy would dethrone him. Considering all these points, it appears that the post of monarch in the Vedic civilization is a very responsible one.
The Brahmana therefore said, no one should offer respect or worship to a king whose only business is envy. Such a king spends his time either hunting and killing animals in the forest or killing citizens for criminal acts. He has no self-control and possesses bad character. If such a king is worshipped or honored by the citizens will never be happy. They will always remain poor, full of anxiety and aggrievement, and always unhappy. In modern politics, the post of monarch has been abolished, and the present president is not held responsible for the comforts of the citizens. In this age of Kali, the executive head of a state somehow or other gets votes and is elected to an exalted post. But the condition of the citizens continues to be full of anxiety, distress, unhappiness, and dissatisfaction.
The Brahmana's second child also died at birth, and the third also. He had 9 children, who all died at birth, and each time he came to the gate of the palace to accuse the king. When the Brahmana came to accuse the king of Dwarka for the 9th time, Arjuna happened to be present with Krishna. On hearing that a Brahmana was accusing the king of not properly protecting him, Arjuna became inquisitive and approached the Brahmana. He said, "My dear Brahmana, why do you say that there are no proper satyas to protect the citizens of your country? Is there not even someone who can pretend to be a satya, who can carry a bow and arrow at least to make a show of protection? Do you think that all the royal personalities in this country simply engage in performing sacrifices with the brahmanas but have no chivalrous power?" Thus Arjuna indicated that satyas should not sit back comfortably on the pretext of performing Vedic rituals, but must rather be very chivalrous in protecting the citizens. Brahmanas, being engaged in spiritual activities, are not expected to do anything which requires physical endeavor. Therefore, they need to be protected by the satyas so that they will not be disturbed in the execution of their higher occupational duties.
If the Brahmanas feel unwanted separation from their wives and children, Arjuna continued, and the Kshatriyas kings do not take care of them, then such Kshatriyas are to be considered no more than stage players. In dramatic performances in the theatre, an actor may play the part of a king, but no one expects any benefit from such a make-believer king. Similarly, if the king or the executive head of the state cannot give protection to the head of the social structure, he is considered merely a bluffer. Such executive heads simply live for their own livelihood while occupying exalted posts as chief of state. My lord, I promise that I shall give protection to your children, and if I am unable to do so, then I shall enter into blazing fire, so that the sinful contamination which has infected me will be counteracted."
Upon hearing Arjuna speak in this way, the Brahmana replied, "My dear Arjuna, Lord Balarama is present, but he could not give protection to my children. Lord Krishna is also present, but he also could not give them protection. There are also many other heroes, such as Pradyumna and Anuruddha, carrying bow and arrow, but they could not protect my children. The Brahmana directly hinted that Arjuna could not do that which was impossible for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He felt that Arjuna was promising something beyond his power. The Brahmana said, I consider your promise to be like that of an inexperienced child. I cannot put my faith in your promise.
Arjuna then understood that the Brahmana had lost all faith in the Kshatriya kings. Therefore, to encourage him, Arjuna spoke as if criticizing even his friend Lord Krishna. While Lord Krishna and others were listening, he specifically attacked Krishna by saying, My dear Brahmana, I am neither Sankarshna nor Krishna, nor one of Krishna's sons like Pratyumna or Aniruddha. My name is Arjuna, and I carry the bow known as Gandiva. You cannot insult me, for I have satisfied even Lord Shiva by my powers, by my prowess. When we were both hunting in the forest, I had a fight with Lord Shiva, who appeared before me as a hunter. And when I satisfied him by my prowess, he gave me the weapon known as Pasubada. Do not doubt my chivalry. I shall bring back your sons even if I have to fight with death personified. When the Brahmana was assured by Arjuna in such exalted words, he was somehow or other convinced, and thus he returned home.
When the Brahmana's wife was to give birth to another child, the Brahmana began to chant, My dear Arjuna, please come now and save my child. After hearing him, Arjuna immediately appeared himself by touching sanctified water and uttering holy mantras to protect his bows and arrows from danger. He specifically took the arrow presented to him by Lord Shiva, and while going out he remembered Lord Shiva and his great power, great favor. In this way he appeared in front of the maternity home equipped with his bow known as Gandiva and with various other weapons.
Arjuna, who apparently had not left Dwarka because he had to fulfill his promise to the Brahmana, was called at night when the Brahmana's wife was to give birth to the child. While going to the maternity home to attend to the delivery case of the Brahmana's wife, Arjuna remembered Lord Shiva and not his friend Krishna. He thought that since Krishna could not give protection to the Brahmana, it was better to take shelter of Lord Shiva. This is another instance of how a person takes shelter of the demigods. This is explained in the Bhagavad Gita. Kamesh tesh ter rita gnana prapadyante anya devata. A person who loses his intelligence because of greed and lust forgets the Supreme Personality of Godhead and takes shelter of the demigods. Of course, Arjuna was not an ordinary living entity, but because of his friendly dealings with Krishna, he thought that Krishna was unable to give protection to the Brahmana, and that he would do better to remember Lord Shiva. Later, it was proved that Arjuna's taking shelter of Lord Shiva instead of Krishna was not at all successful. Arjuna, however, did his best by chanting different mantras, and he shot arrows up and down to guard the maternity home from all directions. The Brahmana's wife delivered a male child, and as usual, the child began to cry. But suddenly, within a few minutes, both the child and Arjuna's arrows disappeared into the sky.
It appears that the Brahmana's house was near Krishna's residence, and that Lord Krishna was enjoying everything that was taking place, apparently in defiance of his authority. It was he who played the trick of taking away the Brahmana's baby, as well as the arrows, including the one given by Lord Shiva, of which Arjuna was so proud. Antavattu palam tisham tat bhavatya pala metasam. Less intelligent men take shelter of the demigods due to bewilderment and are satisfied with the temporary benefits they award.
In the presence of Lord Krishna and others, the Brahmana began to accuse Arjuna. Everyone see my foolishness. I put my faith in the words of Arjuna, who is impotent and who is expert only in false promises. How foolish I was to believe Arjuna. He promised to protect my child when even Pradyumna, Anuruddha, Lord Balaram, and Lord Krishna had failed. If such great personalities could not protect my child, then who can do so? I therefore condemn Arjuna for his false promise, and I also condemn his celebrated bow, Gandiva, and his impudence in declaring himself greater than Lord Balaram, Lord Krishna, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. How can anyone save my child who has already been transferred to another planet? Due to sheer foolishness only, Arjuna thought he could bring back my child from another planet.
Thus, content by the Brahmana, Arjuna empowered himself with the mystic yoga of perfection so that he could travel to any planets to find the Brahmana's baby. It seems that Arjuna had mastered the mystic yoga power by which yogis can travel to any planet they desire. He first of all went to the planet known as Yamaloka, where the superintendent of death Yamaraja lives. There he searched for the Brahmana's baby but was unable to find him. He then immediately went to the planet where the king of heaven, Indra, lives. When unable to find the baby there, he went to the planet of the fire demigod, then to the planet of the Nritti demigod, and then to the moon planet. Then he went to Vayuloka and Varunaloka. When unable to find the baby on these planets, he went down to the Rasatala planet, the lowest of the planetary system. After traveling to all these different planets, he finally went to Brahmaloka, where even mystic yogis cannot go. By the grace of Lord Krishna, Arjuna had that power, and he went above the heavenly planets to Brahmaloka. When he was unable to find the baby, even after searching all possible planets, he then attempted to throw himself into fire. Since he had promised the Brahmana he would do so if unable to bring back his baby. Lord Krishna, however, was very kind towards Arjuna because Arjuna was the most intimate friend of the Lord. Lord Krishna persuaded Arjuna not to enter the fire in disgrace. Krishna indicated that since Arjuna was his friend, if he were to enter the fire in hopelessness, indirectly it would be a blemish on him. Lord Krishna therefore checked Arjuna, assuring him that he would find the baby. He told Arjuna, "Do not foolishly commit suicide."
After addressing Arjuna in this way, Lord Krishna called for his transcendental chariot. He mounted it along with Arjuna and proceeded north. Lord Krishna, the all-powerful personality of Godhead, could have brought the child back without effort. But we should always remember that he was playing the part of a human being. As a human being has to endeavor to achieve certain results, so Lord Krishna, like an ordinary human being, or like his friend Arjuna, left Dwarka to bring back the Brahmana's baby. By appearing in the human society and exhibiting his pastime as a human being, Krishna definitely showed that there was not a single personality greater than he. God is great. That is the definition of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, at least within this material world, while he was present, Krishna proved that there was no greater personality within the universe.
Seated on his chariot with Arjuna, Krishna proceeded north, crossing over many planetary systems. These are described in Srimad Bhagavatam as Sabda Dvipa. Dvipa means island. These planets are sometimes described in the Vedic literature as Dvipas. The planet on which we are living is called Sambudvipa. Outer space is taken as a great ocean of air, and within that great ocean of air, there are many islands, which are the different planets. On each and every planet, there are oceans also. On some of the planets, the oceans are of salt water, and on some of them are oceans of milk. On others, there are oceans of liquor, and on others, there are oceans of ghee or oil. There are different kinds of mountains also. Each and every planet has a different type of atmosphere.
Krishna passed over all these planets and reached the covering of the universe. This covering is described in Srimad Bhagavatam as great darkness. The material world as a whole is described as dark. In the open space there is sunlight, and therefore it is illuminated. But in the covering, because of the absence of sunlight, it is naturally dark. When Krishna approached the covering layer of this universe, the four horses which were drawing the chariot, Shabya, Sugriva, Meghapushpa, and Balahaka, all hesitated to enter the darkness. This hesitation is also a part of the pastimes of Lord Krishna, because the horses of Krishna are not ordinary. It is not possible for ordinary horses to go all over the universe and then enter into its outer covering layers. As Krishna is transcendental, his chariot and his horses and everything about him are also transcendental, beyond the qualities of this material world. We should always remember that Krishna was playing the part of an ordinary human being, and his horses also, by the will of Krishna, played the parts of ordinary horses is hesitating to enter the darkness.
Krishna is known as Yogeshwara, as stated in the last portion of the Bhagavad Gita. Yogeshwaro Harihi. All mystic powers are under his control. In our experience, we can see many human beings who have yogic mystic power and who sometimes perform very wonderful acts. But Krishna is understood to be the master of all yogic power. Therefore, when he saw that his horses were hesitant to proceed into the darkness, he immediately released his disc, known as the Sudarshan Chakra, which illuminated the sky 1,000 times brighter than sunlight. The darkness of the covering of the universe is also a creation of Krishna's, and the Sudarshan Chakra is Krishna's constant companion. Thus he penetrated the darkness by keeping the Sudarshan Chakra before him. Srimad Bhagavatam states that the Sudarshan Chakra penetrated the darkness just as an arrow released from the Saranga bow of Lord Ramachandra penetrated the army of Ravana. Su means very nice and Darshana means observation. By the grace of Lord Krishna's disc, Sudarshana, everything can be seen very nicely and nothing can remain in darkness. Thus, Lord Krishna and Arjuna crossed over the great region of darkness covering the material universes.
Arjuna then saw the effulgence of light known as the Brahmajyoti. The Brahmajyoti is situated outside the covering of the material universes, and because it cannot be seen with our present eyes, this Brahmajyoti is sometimes called Avakta. This spiritual effulgence is the ultimate destination of the impersonalists, known as Vedantists. The Brahmajyoti is also described as Anantaparam, unlimited and unfathomed. When Lord Krishna and Arjuna reached this region of the Brahmajyoti, Arjuna could not tolerate the glaring effulgence, and he closed his eyes. Lord Krishna's and Arjuna's reaching the Brahmajyoti region is described in the Hari Vamsa. In that portion of the Vedic literature, Krishna informed Arjuna, "My dear Arjuna, the glaring effulgence, the transcendental light you are seeing, is my bodily rays. O chief of the descendants of the Bharat, this Brahmajyoti is I myself. As the sun disk and the sunshine cannot be separated, Krishna and his bodily rays, the Brahmajyoti, cannot be separated. Thus, Krishna claims that the Brahmajyoti is he himself. This is clearly stated in the Hari Vamsa. When Krishna says Aham Saha, the Brahmajyoti is a combination of the minute particles known as spiritual sparks, or the living entities, known as Chikana. The Vedic words Soham, or I am the Brahmajyoti, can also be applied to the living entities, who can also claim to belong to the Brahmajyoti. In the Hari Vamsa, Krishna further explains, this Brahmajyoti is an expansion of my spiritual energy.
Krishna told Arjuna, the Brahmajyoti is beyond the region of my external energy, known as Maya Shakti. When one is situated within the material world, it is not possible to experience this Brahma effulgence. In other words, in the material world, this effulgence is not manifested, whereas in the spiritual world, it is manifested. That is the purport of the words Vyakta, Avyakta in the Hari Vamsa. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said, Avyakto Vyaktat Sanatana. Both these energies are eternally manifested. After this, Lord Krishna and Arjuna entered a vast spiritual water. This spiritual water is called the Karana Ocean, which means that this ocean is the origin of the creation of the material world. This place is also known as Viraja because it is free from the influence of the three qualities of the material world. In the Mrityunjaya Tantra, a Vedic scripture, there is a vivid description of this Karana Ocean or Viraja. It is stated that the highest planetary system within the material world is Satyaloka, or Brahmaloka, beyond which are Rudra Loka and Mahavishnu Loka. Regarding this Mahavishnu Loka, it is stated in the Brahma Samhita, Ya Karanar Nava Jale Bhajati, Shma Yoga Nidram Ananta Jagad Ananda Sat Roma Kupaha. Lord Mahavishnu is lying in the Karana Ocean. When he exhales, innumerable universes come into existence. And when he inhales, innumerable universes enter within him. In this way, the material creation is generated and again withdrawn. When Lord Krishna and Arjuna entered the water, it appeared that there was a strong hurricane of transcendental effulgence blowing, and the water of the Karana Ocean was greatly agitated. By the grace of Lord Krishna, Arjuna had the unique experience of being able to see the very beautiful Karana Ocean.
Accompanied by Krishna, Arjuna saw a large palace within the water. There were many thousands of pillars and columns made of valuable jewels, and the glaring effulgence of those columns was so beautiful that Arjuna was charmed by it. Within that palace, Arjuna and Krishna saw the gigantic form of Anantadeva, who is also known as a Shesha. Lord Anantadeva, or Sheshanag, was in the form of a great serpent with thousands of hoods, each one decorated with valuable effulgent jewels. beautifully dazzling. Each of Anantadeva's hoods had two eyes, which appeared very fearful. His body was as white as the mountain of Kailash, which is always covered with snow. His necks were bluish, as were his tongues. Thus Arjuna saw the Sheshanag form, and he also saw that on the very soft white body of Sheshanag, Lord Mahavishnu was lying very comfortably. He appeared all pervading and very powerful, and Arjuna could understand that the Supreme Personality of Godhead in that form is known as a Purushottama. He is known as Purushottama, the supreme or best personality of Godhead, because from this form emanates within the material world another form of Vishnu, known as Garbhodakshayi Vishnu. The Mahavishnu form of the Lord is also called the Purushottama because he is beyond the material world. Tama means darkness and Ut means above, transcendental. Therefore, Uttama means above the darkest region of the material world. Arjuna saw that the bodily color of Purushottama, Mahavishnu, was as dark as a new cloud in the rainy season. He was dressed in very nice yellow clothing. His face was beautifully smiling, and his eyes, which were like the lotus petals, were very attractive. Lord Mahavishnu's helmet was bedecked with the valuable jewels, and his beautiful earrings enhanced the beauty of the curling hair on his head. Lord Mahavishnu had 8 arms, all very long, reaching to his knees. His neck was decorated with the Kaustuba jewel, and his chest was marked with the symbol of Srivatsa, which means the resting place of the goddess of fortune. The Lord wore a garland of lotus flowers known down to his knees. This long garland is known as a Vaijayanti garland.
Lord was attended by his personal association, Narada and Sadanand, and the personified Sudarshan disc was also standing by him. As stated in Vedas, the Lord has innumerable energy, and they also stood there in their personified forms. The most important among them were as follow: Pusti, the energy for the nourishment; Sri, the energy of the beauty; Kirti, the energy of repetition; and Aja, the energy of the material creation. All these energies are invented in administrator of the material world, namely Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, Lord Vishnu, and also Indra, the king of heavenly planets, Chandra, Varun, and sun god. In other words, all these demigods, being empowered by the Lord with certain energy, engages in the transcendental loving service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Mahavishnu feature is an expansion of Krishna's body. The Brahma Samhita confirms that Mahavishnu is the portion of plenary expansion of Krishna. All such expansion are non-different from personality of Godhead. But since Krishna appeared within this material world to manifest his pastime as a human being, he and Arjuna immediately offered their respectful to Lord Mahavishnu by bowing down before him. It is stated in Srimad Bhagavatam that Lord Krishna offered respect to Mahavishnu. This means that Krishna offered obeisances unto none other than himself, because Lord Mahavishnu is non-different from Krishna himself. This offering of obeisances by Krishna to Mahavishnu is not, however, the form of worship, because as the Angragrapha Punsan, which is sometimes recommended for the persons trying to elevate themselves to the spiritual world by performing sacrifice of knowledge. Such persons are also mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita. Although there was no necessity for Krishna to offer obeisances, because he is the master teacher, he taught Arjuna just how respect should be offered to the Lord Mahavishnu. Arjuna, however, became very much afraid upon seeing the genetic form of everything distant from the material experience. Seeing Krishna offering obeisances to Lord Mahavishnu, he immediately followed him and then stood before Lord with folded hands. After this, the genetic form of Mahavishnu, greatly pleased, smiled pleasingly and spoke as follows.
My dear Krishna and Arjuna, I was very eager to see you both, and therefore I arranged to take away the babies of the Brahmana and keep them here. I have been expecting to see you both at this palace. You have appeared in the material world as my incarnations in order to minimize the force of the demoniac persons who burden the world. Now, after killing all these unwanted demons, you will please come back to me. The two of you are incarnations of the great sage Narayana. Although you are both complete in yourselves to protect the devotees and to annihilate the demons, and especially to establish religious principles in the world so that peace and tranquility may continue. You are teaching the basic principles of factual religion so that the people of the world may follow you and thereby be peaceful and prosperous.
Lord Krishna and Arjuna then offered their obeisances to Lord Mahavishnu, and taking back the Brahmana's children, they returned to Dwarka by the same route by which they had entered the spiritual world. All the children of the Brahmana had duly grown up. After returning to Dwarka, Lord Krishna and Arjuna delivered to the Brahmana all of his sons. Arjuna, however, was struck with great wonder after visiting the transcendental world by the grace of Lord Krishna. And by the grace of Krishna, he could understand that whatever opulence there may be within this material world is an emanation from him. Any opulent position a person may have within this material world is due to Krishna's mercy. One should therefore always be in Krishna consciousness, in complete gratefulness of Lord Krishna, because whatever one may possess is all bestowed by him.
Arjuna's wonderful experience due to the mercy of Krishna is one of the many thousands of pastimes performed by Lord Krishna during his stay in this material world. They were all unique and have no parallel in the history of the world. All these pastimes prove fully that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yet, while present within this material world, he played just like an ordinary man with many worldly duties. He played the part of an ideal householder possessing more than 16,000 wives, 16,000 palaces, and 160,000 children. And in that role, he performed many sacrifices just to teach the royal order how to live in the material world for the welfare of humanity. As the ideal Supreme Personality, he fulfilled the desires of everyone from the Brahmanas, the highest persons in human society, down to the ordinary living entities, including the lowest of men. Just as King Indra is in charge of distributing rain all over the world to satisfy everyone in due course, so Lord Krishna satisfies everyone by pouring down his causeless mercy. His mission was to give protection to the devotees and to kill the demoniac kings. Therefore, he killed many hundreds and thousands of demons. Some of them he killed personally, and some were killed by Arjuna, who was deputed by Krishna. In this way, he established many pious kings such as Yudhishthir at the helm of world affairs. Thus, by his divine arrangement, he created the good government of King Yudhishthir, and there ensued peace and tranquility. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 89th chapter of Krishna, the super excellent power of Krishna.
Chapter 90. Summary description of Lord Krishna's pastimes. After returning from the spiritual kingdom, which he was able to visit personally with Krishna, Arjuna was very much astonished. He thought to himself that although he was only an ordinary living entity, by the grace of Krishna, it had been possible for him to see the spiritual world. Not only had he seen the spiritual world, but he had also personally seen the original Mahavishnu, the cause of the material creation. It is said that Krishna never goes out of Vrindavan. Vrindavanam parityaja padam ekam na gachati. Krishna is supreme in Mathura, he is most supreme in Dvaraka, and he is most supreme in Vrindavan. Krishna's pastimes in Dvaraka are displayed by his Vasudeva portion. Yet there is no difference between the Vasudeva portion manifested in Mathura and Dvaraka and the original manifestation of Krishna in Vrindavan. In the beginning of this book, we have discussed that when Krishna appears, all his incarnations, plenary portions and portions of the plenary portions come with him. Thus, some of his different pastimes are manifested not by the original Krishna himself, but by his expansions.
Why Arjuna was puzzled by Krishna's going to see Karanadakshayi Vishnu in the spiritual world is fully discussed in the commentaries of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur as follows. It is understood from the speech of Mahavishnu that he was very eager to see Krishna. It may be said, however, that since Mahavishnu took away the Brahmana's sons, he must certainly have gone to Dwarka to do so. Therefore, why did he not see Krishna there? A possible answer is that unless Krishna gives his permission, he cannot be seen even by Mahavishnu, lying in the causal ocean of the spiritual world. Thus, Mahavishnu took away the Brahmana's sons, one after another, just after their birth, so that Krishna would come personally to the causal ocean to retrieve them, and then Mahavishnu would be able to see him there. If that is so, the next question is this: why would Mahavishnu come to Dwarka personally if he were not able to see Krishna? Why did he not send some of his associates to take away the sons of the Brahmana? A possible answer is that it is very difficult to put any of the citizens of Dwarka into trouble in the presence of Krishna. Therefore, because it was not possible for any of Mahavishnu's associates to take away the Brahmana's sons, he personally came to take them.
Another question may also be raised. The Lord is known as Brahmana Deva, the worshipable deity of the Brahmanas. So why was he inclined to put a Brahmana into such a terrible condition of lamentation over one son after another until the 10th son was taken away? The answer is that Lord Mahavishnu was so eager to see Krishna that he didn't hesitate even to give trouble to a Brahmana. Although giving trouble to a Brahmana is a forbidden act, Lord Vishnu was prepared to do anything in order to see Krishna. He was so eager to see him. After losing each of his sons, the Brahmana would come to the gate of the palace and accuse the kings of not being able to give the Brahmanas protection and of thus being unfit to sit on the royal throne. It was Mahavishnu's plan that the Brahmana would be accused the Kshatriya and the Krishna, and Krishna would be obliged to come to see him to take back the Brahmana's sons.
Still another question may be raised. If Mahavishnu cannot see Krishna, then how was Krishna obliged to come before him, after all, to take back the sons of Brahmana? The answer is that Lord Krishna went to see Lord Mahavishnu not exactly to take back the sons of Brahmana, but only for Arjuna's sake. His friendship with Arjuna was so intimate that when Arjuna prepared himself to die by entering a fire, Krishna wanted to give him complete protection. Arjuna, however, could not desist from the entering the fire unless the sons of Brahmana were brought back. Therefore, Krishna promised him, I shall bring back the Brahmana's son. Do not try to commit suicide.
If Lord Krishna were going to see Lord Vishnu only to reclaim the sons of the Brahmana, then he would not have waited until the 10th son was taken. But when the 10th son was taken away by Lord Mahavishnu, and when Arjuna was therefore ready to enter the fire, because his promise was going to prove false, that serious situation made Lord Krishna decide to go with Arjuna to see Mahavishnu. It is said that Arjuna is an empowered incarnation of Naranarayana. He is even sometimes called Naranarayana. The Naranarayana incarnation is one of the Lord Vishnu's plenary expansions. Therefore, when Krishna and Arjuna went to see Lord Vishnu, it is to be understood that Arjuna visited in his Naranarayana capacity, just as Krishna, when he displayed his pastimes in Dwaraka, acted in his Vasudeva capacity.
After visiting the spiritual world, Arjuna concluded that whatever opulence anyone can show within the material or spiritual worlds, it is all a gift of Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna is manifested in various forms as Vishnu Tattva and Jiva Tattva, or in other words, as Swamsha and Vibhinamsha. Vishnu Tattva is known as Swamsha and Jiva Tattva is known as Vibhinamsha. He can therefore display himself by his different transcendental pastimes. In the portion of either Swamsha or Vibhinamsha as he likes, but still he remains the original Supreme Personality of Godhead.
The concluding portion of Krishna's pastimes is found in the 19th chapter of the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. And in this chapter, Shukadev Goswami wanted to explain how Krishna lived happily at Dwarka with all opulences. Krishna's opulence of strength has already been displayed in his different pastimes. And now it will be shown how his residence at Dwarka displayed his opulences of wealth and beauty. In this material world, the opulences of wealth and beauty are considered the highest of all opulences. Yet they are only a perverted reflection of these opulences in the spiritual world. Therefore, while Krishna stayed on this planet as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his opulences of wealth and beauty had no comparison within the three worlds. Krishna enjoyed 16,000 beautiful wives, and it is most significant that he lived at Dwarka as the only husband of these thousands of beautiful women. This is specifically stated that he was the only husband of 16,000 wives. It is, of course, not unheard of in the history of the world that a powerful king would keep many hundreds of queens. But although such a king might be the only husband of so many wives, he could not enjoy all of them at one time. Lord Krishna, however, enjoyed all of his 16,000 wives simultaneously.
Although it may be said that yogis also can expand their bodies into many forms, the yogi's expansion and Lord Krishna's expansion are not the same. Krishna is therefore sometimes called Yogeshwara, the master of all yogis. In the Vedic literature, we find that the yogi Shobari Muni expanded himself into 8. But that expansion was like a television expansion. The television image is manifested in millions of expansions, but those expansions cannot act differently. They are simply reflections of the original and can only act exactly as the original does. Krishna's expansion is not material, like the expansion of the television of the yogi. When Narada visited the different places of Krishna, he saw that Krishna, in his different expansions, was variously engaged in each and every palace of the queens.
It is also said that Krishna lived in Dwarka as the husband of the goddess of fortune. Queen Rukmini is the goddess of fortune, and all the other queens are her expansions. So Krishna, the chief of the Vrishni dynasty, enjoyed with the goddess of fortune in full opulence. The queens of Krishna are described as permanently youthful and beautiful. Although Krishna had grandchildren and great-grandchildren, neither Krishna nor his queens looked older than 16 or 20 years of age. The young queens were so beautiful that when they moved, they appeared like lightning moving in the sky. They were always dressed with excellent ornaments and garments, and were always engaged in sportive activities like dancing, singing, or playing ball on the roofs of the palaces. The dancing and tennis playing of girls in the material world are perverted reflections of the original pastimes of the original personality of Godhead, Krishna, and his wives.
The roads and streets of the city of Dwarka were always crowded with elephants, horses, chariots, and infantry soldiers. When elephants are engaged in service, they are given liquor to drink, and it is said that the elephants in Dwarka were given so much liquor that they would sprinkle a great quantity of it on the road and still walk on the streets intoxicated. The infantry soldiers passing on the streets were profusely decorated with golden ornaments, and horses and golden chariots piled along the streets. In all directions of Dwarka city, wherever one would turn his eyes, he would find green parks and gardens, each of them filled with trees and plants, laden with the fruits and flowers. Because there were so many nice trees of fruits and flowers, all the sweetly chirping birds and buzzing bumblebees joined together to make the sweet vibration. The city of Dwarka thus fully displayed all opulences. The heroes in the dynasty of Yadu used to think themselves the most fortunate residents of the city, and actually they enjoyed all transcendental facilities.
All the 16,000 palaces of Krishna's queen were situated in this beautiful city of Dwarka, and Lord Krishna, the supreme internal enjoyer of all these facilities, expanded himself into 16,000 forms and simultaneously engaged in the different family affairs in those 16,000 palaces. In each and every one of the palaces, there were nicely decorated gardens and lakes. The crystal clear water of the lakes contained many blooming lotus flowers of different colors. like blue, yellow, white, and red, and the saffron powder from the lotus flower was blown all around by the breeze. All the lakes were full of beautiful swans, ducks, and cranes, crying occasionally with melodious sound. Lord Sri Krishna sometimes entered those lakes or the rivers with his wives and enjoyed swimming pastime with them in full jubilation. Sometimes the wives of Lord Krishna, who were all goddesses of fortune, would embrace Lord in the midst of the water while swimming or taking a bath, and the red garments of the kumkum decorating their beautiful breasts would adorn the chest of Lord with the reddish color.
The impersonalists would not dare believe that in the spiritual world there are such varieties of enjoyment. But in order to demonstrate the factual, ever blissful enjoyment in the spiritual world, Lord Krishna descended to this planet and showed that the spiritual world is not devoid of such pleasurable facilities of life. The only difference is that in the spiritual world, such facilities are eternal, never ending occurrences, whereas in the material world, there are simply impermanent, perverted reflections. When Lord Krishna was engaged in such enjoyment, the Gandharvas and professional musicians would glorify him with melodious musical concerts accompanied by kettle drums, mridangas, and other drums, along with stringed instruments and brass bugles. And the whole atmosphere would change into a greatly festive celebration. In a festive mood, the wives of the Lord would sometimes sprinkle water on his body with a string-like instrument, and the Lord would similarly wet the bodies of the queens. When Krishna and the queens engaged in themselves in these pastimes, it seemed as if the heavenly king, Yaksha Raja, were engaged in pastimes with his many wives. Yaksha Raja is also known as Kuvera and is considered the treasurer of the heavenly kingdom. When the wives of Lord Krishna thus became wet, their breasts and thighs would increase in beauty 1,000 times, and their long hair would fall down to decorate their parts of their bodies. The beautiful flowers placed in their hair would fall, and the queens, seemingly harassed by the lords throwing water at them, would approach him on the plea of snatching the string-like instrument. This attempt would create a situation wherein the Lord could embrace them as they willingly approached him. Upon being embraced, the wives of the Lord would feel on their mouths a clear indication of conjugal love, and this would create an atmosphere of spiritual bliss. When the garland on the neck of the Lord then touched the breasts of the queens, their whole bodies became covered with saffron yellow. Being engaged in their celestial pastimes, the queens forgot themselves, and their loosened hair appeared like beautiful waves of a river. When the queens sprinkled water on the body of Krishna, or he sprinkled water on the bodies of the queens, the whole situation appeared just like that of an elephant enjoying in a lake with many she elephants.
After enjoying fully amongst themselves, the queens and Lord Krishna would come out of the water, and they would give up give up their wet garments, which were very valuable, to be taken away by the professional singers and dancers. The singers and dancers had no means of subsistence other than the rewards of valuable garments and ornaments left by the queens and kings on such occasions. The whole system of society was so well planned that all the members of society in their different positions as Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Sudras had no difficulty in earning their livelihood. There was no competition among the divisions of society. The original conception of the caste system was so planned that one group of men engaged in a particular type of occupation would not compete with another group of men engaged in a different occupation.
Hare Krishna. That concludes our reading of Krishna book to our beloved Srila Prabhupada. So we'll continue reading on next Sunday at 4:30 p.m. Let us pay our obeisances to Srila Prabhupada and to each other. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyata Desha Tarine. And to each other, Vancha Kalpatarubhesha Krupa Sindhupa Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna. Jai Krishna Book. Jai Srila Prabhupada.